Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RealClearPolitics Takeaway for Tuesday, March 9th. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP.
I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief.
What are we going to talk about today, Carl?
Well, it was announced that Joe Biden, President Biden, is going to give his first primetime address to the nation on Thursday, Tom. He's going to talk about a year, the toll that COVID-19 has taken on America in the past year. I imagine he's going to talk about some of the successes, getting the vaccine and starting significant numbers of Americans being vaccinated. But he's also going to look back on the people we lost. And hopefully this will generate talks about, instead of the personalities and Trump and hydroxychloroquine, we can talk about what we learned from this and as a country, how we can prepare for it better next time.
Have we turned the corner on this, Carl? There's a lot of talk about vaccination. The CDC came out with guidelines yesterday and basically said, well, if you're vaccinated, the good news is you can hang out, you can gather with other people who are fully vaccinated. It doesn't seem, there's been a lot of this going around that like getting the vaccine doesn't really allow you to do much. You still have to wear a mask. There are mask mandates all over the place. And that if you're cohabitating with someone who hasn't had the vaccine, that's a problem. You've gotten the vaccine, right?
I've gotten one of them.
Okay, so you're not fully vaccinated.
No, sir.
So you can't do anything. You're still locked down. No haircut, nothing.
There's a doctor, Lena Wen, who writes for the Washington Post occasionally, and she has a column. And she kind of chastises it very subtly because she's not a polemicist. The CDC and some of the health authorities, they weren't really giving Americans much incentive to get vaccinated. They said, you get vaccinated, you'll still have to wear a mask. We don't know if the variants will, if it still protects you against the variants. People are still dying and being hospitalized. They were basically saying nothing will change for you if you're fully vaccinated. And that was a messaging problem. It was probably a science problem too. And this is the corrective to that. They're trying to give Americans some hope. But, we're at, 528,000 deaths now, Tom, in 1 year. When you and I do our show on Thursday, that number will be probably more than 530. We're not out of the woods yet. And so the health officials are torn between wanting to give Americans encouragement so they'll get vaccinated and, do the positive, keep their mental health, but also they're trying to avoid a fourth wave. It's a tough thing to know how to do, but it does feel like we're coming out of it, but we're still losing hundreds and hundreds of Americans every day.
Well, it certainly seems like for a lot of folks, the pandemic is just over. Like they're done with it. You can see the opening up in Texas and Mississippi and some of these other states, relaxation of restrictions, even in lockdown states like here in Illinois. Restaurants are getting back to half capacity or full capacity. So, but I want to touch on one other thing, Carl, this morning. You mentioned Joe Biden. He's going to give this primetime speech. He is also now, after it's almost 50 days since taking office without an official press conference, the White House press secretary Jen Psaki said the other day that he's going to have one at the end of the month. So in another 14 or so days, we will see Joe Biden. Now, he has taken some questions when they're shouted at him in the Oval Office or, when he does some of these pool, events with pool. But he has not stood before the press and taken questions, Carl. And it's by far, it's the longest that any president's gone without doing a press conference. So what do we make of this? And is this part of the same strategy that the campaign used, which was to sort of keep Biden under wraps, or why else would they be having him basically avoid the press for the better part of 2 months coming into office?
Well, it's worrisome, Tom. He's 78, and you don't have to be a partisan hack or a right winger to start to wonder why they're keeping him away. I'm eager to see this speech Thursday, and even more eager to see the press conference because, look, he's our president. You want him to be fully command of his faculties. You want him to be sharp. You want him to be, as sharp as he ever was, but you want him to be able to do the job. And so I hope they get him out there, and I hope he does well. That's all I can say about it.
Well, Carl, speaking of doing well, Biden did get through, at least the Senate passed on a party line vote, 50-49, this massive COVID relief package, 1.9 trillion. And while there were some things that were changed and the minimum wage was stripped out, it's going to now go back to the House, who's voting on it today, I think, or very, very soon. It should be on Biden's desk. And this is being hailed as a big political win. Republicans are basically saying, look, it has an awful lot to do with Democratic spending priorities, not an awful lot to do with COVID relief, because a lot of the money in there is going to things that, the school spending, for example, is going to things that are in out years and future years, as opposed to things that are going to happen right now. So how big of a political win is this for Biden in your estimation?
Well, it can't be underestimated. It's very big. And, you mentioned the merits of the bill. Let's separate them for a minute. Will it bankrupt our grandchildren? Is there hundreds of billions of dollars in there in pork barrel spending and stuff for teachers unions and public employees in states that, like yours, Illinois, that bankrupted themselves with pensions and other profligate programs? Yes, there are. But and that's Republicans should talk about it. But there's two things I'll say about that. One is they only rediscovered that they're fiscal conservatives after Joe Biden was inaugurated. They'd seem to have forgotten that. So they're not maybe the best ambassadors for that point of view. But the second thing is, let's talk about the politics of it. We're called Real Clear Politics. This is a president who the White House shepherded through this bill through the Senate. It wouldn't have happened if those Georgia Senate races had turned out differently, but it did happen, and he didn't have to, break the filibuster or go against the norms. He did it the old-fashioned way, negotiating, pressuring, keeping his party in line. It's an accomplishment. There's no question about it.
All right. We will leave it there. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief. This has been the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for Tuesday, March 9th, 2021.